I hope we're in the right Zoom room. I don't know if they switch, you know what I mean? From top to bottom is.
Okay.
Yeah, we're in the right Zoom room. I don't know if they switch, you know what I mean? From top to bottom is. Okay.
Hello,
Yeah,
and welcome to a weekly wrap-up Q&A, healing from A to Z with Masterful U, me, and KB. This week's healing sessions with Chris were brought to you by the letter A: abandonment, abuse, addiction, and anxiety. And as Chris talked about at the end of every video, we asked that people send questions in so that we could do a Q&A on Friday and answer any questions that popped up as you watched the video. And I gladly volunteered to be Chris's Ed McMahon to her Johnny Carson. And that's really dating both of us, but here we are.
And we love them, still do.
So, hello. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Judy.
How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you. Yeah, I'm great.
Excellent.
How about you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you. Is there anything you want to say before we jump into questions?
No, I just thank you everybody for your support this week. It's been fantastic. I'm really grateful.
Excellent. Though Chris will not say it, I will say it for her. It's been a big deal for her to put herself out here and do these videos for you. She's had, this wisdom that she has experienced, this healing, and I've been telling her for years, yes, I'm going to say it. I have been telling her for years that she needs to put herself out there and allow people to benefit from her experience and wisdom. So I am very proud of you for you stepping into your light and having the courage to do this. And I'm honored to be a part of it.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so grateful for you too. This healing journey, you've been a big part of it. Yeah.
We never do it alone, do we, Chris?
We don't. No, that is a key message. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so the first question we have has to do with the topic of abandonment.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm going to giggle because I've made these. It's our first week, so we haven't had a lot of questions come in. So, we've been picking brains of family, friends, and things like that. So I'm going to say this comes from Anna in Alabama.
Excellent.
Okay. So how do you know when what you're feeling is abandonment trauma versus just disappointment?
Wow, that's a really good question.
Yeah.
As with all things, it's about the answers lie inside our experience and inside our unconscious, right? So we want to go into the experience of what we're feeling and, what are the thoughts that you're thinking? For example, if I'm thinking things like, why does this always happen to me? I thought I was going to get past this. I'm so unlucky. And, you're thinking all these things, I'm trying to turn off my notifications because all of a sudden I'm the most popular person on the planet while we're while we're doing this. And they're loud. Can you hear me now?
I couldn't hear.
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah, see, it's just ridiculous. All right, I guess we're just gonna have to deal with it, and for next time, that will be done. Yeah, so notice, are you looking back at the past? Are you thinking about your history and connecting what's happening today to something that happened previously?
Mm.
Or is this a standalone? How are you feeling? Are you feeling like, something heavy? We're going to get disappointed. There are times when we're like, "Oh, I thought something else was going to happen." Or, I was hoping this was going to be different than it is. But there's a difference between feeling like, "Oh, I thought this might be different," disappointment, and, "Oh, I don't know if I can go on." Right?
Mhm.
So I like to talk about the compass. And so on that scale of 1 to 10, and I want to say 0 to 10, but I'm always told like 0, people ain't here. You know? So it really is 1 to 10 that we're concerned with here. And one is, I don't want to get out of bed. That's your experience. Like it's so bad you don't want to get out of bed. Until you get to at least a 4, you're dealing with past trauma. You're dealing with an idea. The trauma might not be directly abandonment, but it's this idea of bad things tend to happen to me, right? As opposed to good things tend to happen to me. It's that the cup is half empty. When we're in that feeling, most of the time when we're having that experience, there's a good chance that we're dragging some baggage from the past and we've got some trauma to heal.
Okay, so with that, do you feel that there is a specific pattern that would be attached to the abandonment trauma of the past? Like a survival technique that they've used in the past that they're getting the urge to use again, but are more aware now? So they're catching themselves?
It can be. I mean, I know for me, with abandonment, I would kind of blow my life up. Whenever things started to feel like, oh, it feels like this is getting scary. Oh, I would feel vulnerable, but on an unconscious level,
Right.
right? I wasn't thinking, oh, I'm feeling vulnerable in this moment. I should take some sort of action. This is all happening at the instinctive level. And so I would start to feel uncomfortable. I would start to pick up signals that something was changing. And that change, when it's your instincts are paying attention to it, and when abandonment was like an outcome that
Mm-hmm.
you've been dealing with, you start thinking, oh, here it comes.
Right.
You don't realize you're thinking that, but you are.
Mm-hmm.
Something's changing, and change is never good. That's trauma.
So you
Because
said it would blow up your life.
yes, I would
What,
blow up yeah,
yeah, what did that look like?
getting divorced, changing jobs, anything that I was going along and everything was okay. And then I started to feel different in the experience.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have the tools of sticking with it because in my unconscious was this, and in my instincts specifically, because we've also got intuition and inspiration, we've got very high level energy and insight also in our unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
But in my instincts, which were very strong because I was carrying such a big chunk of this um, trauma, was the idea that change is going to be bad, get out before it blows up.
Yeah.
And you're not able to see that you're actually doing the very thing that it is that you're so afraid is going to happen. Right? I mean, it's the logic of the subconscious, the logic of instincts
Mm-hmm.
isn't really there.
No, no, it's that survival pattern. It's what you do in order to survive. And 9 times out of 10, it doesn't make any sense.
Right,
And like,
exactly.
yeah. And like I've always said, one of the hardest pills for me to swallow was accepting the fact that everything that has happened to me in my life, I played a role in. I
Yes,
pay too.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. And when I started thinking about how my unconscious mind, my instincts were actually trying to give me opportunities to actually see the pattern again so that I could work my way through it this time and be rational
Mm-hmm.
and actually use my intuition and inspiration to find my way through in a way that was peaceful so I could be okay in my skin, so I could realize that change doesn't have to be a bad thing. In fact, I know logically and from experience, change can be incredible. I
Yes.
mean, some of the best things, all of the best things that have ever happened in my life came about with change.
Mm-hmm.
But this abandonment in my instincts kept me from being able to feel good about the prospect of change, even as I acquired, evidence that it
Mm-hmm.
was likely to be a very positive thing.
Yeah, the resistance is real. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a pattern deeply embedded because we needed it for survival.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah, and I'm hearing disappointment. With disappointment, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, okay, that didn't turn out the way I planned. in my mind, it's like, okay, that must be there's something better coming.
Yes.
That's what I
Yes.
had to shift my line of thinking to. Okay, if I didn't get this, then it means there's something better coming my way.
Yes. And if you continue through kind of thinking about, we did think and feel, if you get to the place of like, what are you saying and doing?
Mm-hmm.
Observe yourself. Don't judge or criticize. Just observe, like, what are you saying and doing? I remember saying things like, oh, this stuff happens to me all the time. I can never catch a break. And ask yourself, like, is that actually what you want to be true?
Right.
I mean, is that how you want to see the world? Because how we see the world is how we're going to live it. And dropping into your body and how do you sense it? So if I'm carrying past trauma and I focus on my body and I'm thinking about this trauma a little bit, about this abandonment, and I ask myself, like, how do I feel? My body's going to start saying, oh, we got tension over here, tension in aisle B or, aisle A in this case. Your body's going to communicate with you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to tell you, like, yeah, we've got a cleanup we need to do over here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not going to happen with disappointment,
No, no.
right? It's not going to have that depth. And then, finally, it's the knowing, intuitively asking yourself, is this something bigger than what's happening right here immediately?
Yeah. Yeah. Is this emotional response aligned with, does it match the current experience?
Yes.
And if not, dig deeper.
Yes. Yes. And I would say, like, am I overreacting? And not as a judgment. It's just if I could step back as a casual observer and I look at the situation and I look at what happened here, and then I look at the reaction to it,
Mm-hmm.
do they match? Right? Because for me, little things could send me into, a spiral where it would take me months to get back to being able to like start planning new things again.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. And it's one of those things that you see a lot, but it really does. If you can shift your perspective, it makes a huge difference when you shift from why is this happening to me to why is this happening for me? Where's the look for the
Yes.
okay. All right. Excellent. We're going to move to Tuesday where you spoke about abuse.
Ah,
And we have Diane from Detroit asked, what are the subtle signs of emotional or verbal abuse that often get overlooked?
hmm.
Yeah, I thought that was a good one too.
It is a good one. It's funny. I really do subscribe in my experience to people who are in pain cause pain. Uh, I think it's so important to start with that viewpoint because I know there's a lot of information on the internet about, those people are bad and here are all the terrible things that they do. And, if you're not one of them, then
Mm-hmm.
you're a good person. And I think that's so dangerous.
Yeah.
Um, Especially because when we're in relationships, it literally is a two-way street. Um, if we're in a relationship with someone who is unkind and disrespectful, to us, first of all, it's important to know the way they talk to you is the way they talk to themselves, right? I mean, if you're inside beating yourself up all the time, and then somebody else comes across and does something, and it's an opportunity to beat up on somebody else instead of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty much human nature to do that, to take advantage of that opportunity. And I found that when I was in verbally and emotionally abusive um, relationships, I'd grown up in that environment,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where people were not kind and respectful, where sarcasm masqueraded as love,
Mm-hmm.
where when people told you what was wrong with you, they were doing it because they loved you and they wanted the best for you, right? And this is pretty common. So like I have no problem saying I grew up around this
Mm-hmm.
because I don't think that's shameful. I think it's the truth. of our civilization, our society, and where we've evolved to,
Mhm.
right? And also, we're starting to work on moving past that. But to move past that experience, we actually have to acknowledge, yeah, that's where we are.
Yeah.
You know, if I decide I want to go from Boston to LA, I actually have to start in Boston. I can't be in Vermont and be like, let's pretend I'm in Boston. That's never going to work. So we need to actually say, where are we?
Mhm.
And we're in a place where a lot of us are beating ourselves up. We feel beaten up and criticized and judged by other people. We're doing it to ourselves, which makes us a little porcupiney, a little prickly. So I know for me, I got used to being criticized. And so I would assume that people had bad intentions.
Mhm.
So even when people gave me a compliment, I thought, you know,
Up to
like,
that.
yeah, exactly. Okay. What are you trying to do here? I wasn't able to just receive it because I didn't trust that there were people who were being kind and generous of spirit because the people I grew up around were anxious. They weren't in a feeling completely at peace in your body, and you can't give something loving to somebody else unless there's a loving experience going on inside of you.
Mhm.
So when I talk about abuse, I mean, I talk about we're abusing ourselves,
Mhm.
right? Like when we can get into a place, like if I make a decision, which I used to do, if I made decisions to be in relationships with people who were not kind to me, right? Was I being kind to me?
Right. That's it right there. You know, if you're with somebody who emotionally is just constantly nitpicking, telling you that you're never going to find a better one than me. You have this wrong with you. You have that wrong with you. The
Yeah,
first thing you do is check on your relationship with you.
yeah,
Because what I learned in all the self loathing years that I've lived is I attracted people that would validate my belief that I was trash,
yeah.
that I was broken, that I wasn't worthy of love. That's what I wound up inviting into my life, and then I'd get all butt hurt when they hurt my feelings.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And that's the pattern because it's the pattern from childhood.
Mm-hmm.
What we learned was that having affection given as a reward and withheld as punishment was
Mm-hmm.
normal,
Yeah.
that was actually love. And then we would try to figure out how do I get more of the good stuff
Mm-hmm.
and less of the bad stuff. So now we're in our heads trying to figure out how do I manipulate this situation instead of being in our bodies and saying, okay, what am I thinking, feeling, sensing, doing, and saying, and knowing in this interaction, is this a healthy thing for me? Is this, you know what? And healthy can sound like a judgment, and I don't mean it as a judgment at all. So let's even say, is this a happy thing for me?
There you go.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
When I'm in this relationship interacting with this person, do I feel generally happy? Do I feel better about being me, or do I feel worse about being me?
Yeah. Do I feel seen, heard, loved?
Yes. I love to say adored.
Yeah.
Everyone deserves to feel adored
Mm-hmm.
without conditions,
Right.
right? But if we think that's not available, if we think that's a unicorn fantasy, and that's not available, then we'll try to turn the person that we're into something tolerable. But unfortunately, the only experience that we have any real influence on is our own.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I keep saying, don't worry about how you think you appear to the outside world. Get inside your own experience and check in what's actually going on there. Because if I get really clear about my experience, then I start saying, when I hang out with that person, I feel like I'm being dismissed.
Mm-hmm.
Then I can simply say, is this a person I want to hang out with? I mean, it becomes so clear and simple.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to change me. I don't need to change them. There's no big drama or problem. It's just an acknowledgement of, is this the way I want to experience things?
Mm-hmm.
And if not, go find people who want an experience like the one you want.
Exactly. And it doesn't make the other people bad. It's not a judgment. It's
No.
what I have, I found that embracing the sacredness. And this is a lot because of the work I've done with you. You know, my softness is sacred.
Yes,
And I don't have to share that with everyone.
that's right.
And it's so important for you to understand that, you know, your energy is sacred. And being a recovering people pleaser, we don't have to shift and put masks on so that we're accepted everywhere. Because
No.
once we accept ourselves, then we're a lot more selective as to who we open ourselves up to.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I mean, it becomes more about, even think about in relationships or in intimate relationships, this idea that, oh, well, this person is giving me attention, so therefore I need to, kind of dive into that and see how much more attention I can get and,
Right.
whatnot. Whereas there's like no process of, is this what I imagined when I thought about love? Right? We need to be just like when you go for a job interview. Oh my God, I hope they hire me. I hope they want me. How about when we walk in the door? I used to coach people on this all the time. When you walk in the door, you're interviewing them. Is this a place where you want to work? Do they deserve to have your time and energy?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's not just about an exchange of I'll show up and you pay me. It's like, is this an environment that is going to support you in being who you want to be in the world and feeling the way you want to feel?
And I feel like more and more people are waking up to that perspective,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people are complaining about it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, how dare you
Mm-hmm.
be picky about the situation that you want to be in or how much money you want to make or whatever? Because in our generation, we were not taught to be like that. Um,
Beggars can't be choosers.
right. Right. Well, yeah. What makes you think that, a better job than this will come along?
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, do we have to assume it won't? Right? And it always goes back, it's so simple. It always goes back to the half cup and the cup half empty or half full.
Mm-hmm.
Because the way we look at things, is going to determine the way we experience it. I mean, you want good things to happen, assume good things are going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So I'm not sure we answered specifically subtle signs of emotional growth.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I would,
I
know,
do I know. I do the big
sarcasm,
picture thing. Hmm.
the biggest thing for me is energetically, how does it feel to you? When somebody says something to you, your body is going to respond.
Yeah,
Energy doesn't lie.
right.
So if it gives you a hint of, oh, that didn't feel so nice, then those words are being used against you.
Yeah, yeah.
Though the words may sound okay, the energy behind them is not kind. It's not respectful. And your body will let you know that.
Right. And I have, it's so funny because I'm thinking like, okay, so anything prior to like the year 2018,
Mm-hmm.
all of that was subtle signs that people were at war with you
Mm.
and you were at war with yourself,
Oh, wow.
right? Competitive battleground. I mean, all of it.
Right.
It really was like, I used to call it the sliding scale of judgment. I haven't talked about
Mm-hmm.
this in a long time, but it was like, let's say somebody else says, "Hey, I had this good thing happen to me," right? So you're kind of like, we're here. And then it's like, "Oh, I had this great thing happen to me." Automatically, we're like, "Oh, they went up," which means in comparison, I just went down.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Nothing freaking changed. But in our minds, it's like, oh, well, they went higher and therefore I went lower. And so now, how do I feel about that person? And how do I feel about myself as a result of this?
Right.
Right? So all of that competition um, just created an environment where we couldn't connect and genuinely support one another
Mm-hmm.
because if something good happens to you, it didn't happen to me, and I got to feel bad about that.
Yeah. And in order for me to win, you have to lose.
Yes. And
Mm-hmm.
it's in our relationships, it's in our intimate relationships. Not all of them, not all of the time, but there is this kind of, this sense of like we must be about the same or we wouldn't be together. Or in some relationships, one person is like, no, I'm in charge here.
Uh-huh.
You're
Absolutely.
lucky to be here. Yeah, exactly. And if that gap widens, then you might get lost.
Hmm.
So we really want to get away from this idea of like who's better. I mean, we all came into this world, we're all going out. I mean, and what we do in the meantime, really just affects us.
Hmm.
We affect other people, but it's about your own experience. That's why we called our program Own Your Experience,
Hmm.
right? Be much more interested in what's going on inside of your experience than how it is that you think you might compare to what you imagine somebody else's experience might be.
Right.
Oh,
That's a lot of work.
it is, and it's impossible.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. We're going to move on to addiction.
Hmm.
And this comes from Jen in Shrewsbury. And that's for real.
Yeah.
How can I tell the difference between coping and addiction when it comes to habits?
Hmm. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's not really much difference. It's a perspective, right? But it's almost like we could say a coping mechanism is something that we do because it eases the experience that we're having in that moment.
Okay.
So it makes us feel a little bit better. If we repeat that coping mechanism over and over and over again, eventually it becomes an addiction that we're not even aware we're doing.
Ah.
Right? So let's think about it in the beginning. Maybe you go out as a teenager and you go to a party and you're feeling really awkward and uncomfortable and you have a beer and you taste it and you're like, oh, this is terrible. Because, there was a time when we all thought beer tasted terrible. But you lose that sense of insecurity and being with your peers and being out in a new environment and all of that kind of stuff. What are the expectations? Do people think I'm cool? Like all of that stuff is going on inside. You have a beer or two, and there's less of that.
Mm-hmm.
So you feel better. Well, now maybe you don't drink again for months and months, right? And when you do, you're aware of it. You're like, you know what? I think if I had a beer, I'd feel better. There comes a point, and you see this in professionals all the time. There comes a point at which the window between or the gap between when we turn to that coping mechanism is shorter and shorter and shorter. And that's really when we're in addiction. It's still a coping mechanism. We're still trying to feel more comfortable in our skin. But now our unconscious mind is saying, you need this, as opposed to, I could do that.
Mm. Okay. So the intensity of the need.
Yeah, and the sense of like it's not a choice anymore.
Yeah.
When it's an addiction, it's not a choice. It's your unconscious mind saying, I need this.
Mm-hmm.
And your intellect will justify that. Because now you're feeling uncomfortable. That's the point, is that, and the discomfort that you feel will escalate because it's your instincts trying to get you to do the thing that it thinks you need to do in order to be safer in your body.
Right. Now I know in the video you talked about healthy addiction.
Mhm.
You want to touch on that a little bit before we move on?
Yeah, sure.
You
Yeah, I mean, healthy
can't say
addiction
that
is,
too
yeah, it's true, right? Um, Healthy addictions are those things like, people talk about people who love to ride motorcycles,
much. Mm-hmm.
right? People who love to ride horses, people who love to bike or whatever those things are. They're those places, runners. We talk about the runner's high.
Mm-hmm.
Those things that people do that actually can benefit your mind and your body, can benefit you, and it becomes an addiction because you start craving it. So craving is kind of a good word, right? When it's like, it's not just, oh, wouldn't it be nice to go for a ride today? It's like, I got to go for a ride today,
Hmm.
right? I need that experience right now because of whatever the signals are inside of me. And that's why tuning in, what are you thinking, feeling, saying, doing,
Hmm.
sensing, knowing, right? Over and over again, like tuning in, what's going on? Because the answer to your addiction or the key that will unlock your addiction is in that experience. When you actually go in there and say, what's going on with me right now that has me thinking I need this thing that I don't need, but I'm thinking I do, I'm feeling like I do.
Hmm.
Going on in there, you're automatically changing yourself into a different energy out of instincts. Instincts don't ask questions. Instincts take action, right? It's like they get triggered on something and we're just going to keep drilling and making it louder and louder until you take action. Your intuition, inspiration, those are happening in a different way. That's when you start asking questions and you actually can override, um, yeah, override the signal that I need.
Hmm.
You actually can step forward and say, is that true? What's going on right now?
Yeah.
And
The question breaks the energy of the addiction.
yes,
Pause so that you can think with clarity.
yes.
What I
And
just heard.
even just by asking, like, what's going on, you're changing when you focus your energy on your own body, on your own experience, it will change that experience just by focusing on it.
Hmm.
Right? So it's not like I'm stuck in this experience and I have to stay here suffering in this experience until I do the thing that I'm craving. No, you start paying attention to your experience and asking your experience questions, and it will change on its own.
And don't judge it.
Right.
Don't judge it. That's the biggest thing I keep hearing over and over and over again is, you know, when we judge ourselves for the addiction, when we judge ourselves for drinking the alcohol, that
Right.
just feeds into the pattern because we're feeling shitty about ourselves. Then we want to escape from feeling shitty about ourselves. So we drink some more and we
Yeah.
get a little window of a break. So the judgment,
Absolutely.
don't judge, that breaks the cycle.
Yes, absolutely. Compassion, kindness, and there's a great little scene in The Little Prince, the book The Little Prince,
Mm-hmm.
where the little prince comes upon this guy who's sitting on a planet all by himself drinking. And the prince says to him, "Why are you drinking?" And he says, "Because I'm so ashamed." And he says, "Why are you so ashamed?" And the guy says, "Because I'm drinking."
Mm. Yep.
That's exactly it. Like this idea that we should be ashamed of the fact that we didn't know how to manage our instincts. Who told you about your instincts and how to manage them? If you had been informed about this early in life, you would have acted accordingly.
Exactly.
But we were not informed. And we look around and we see people working on all these unconscious, instinct driven behaviors. And so we think it's, that's what everybody's doing.
Mm-hmm.
So it must be okay.
Yeah. All right. We're going to move on to Thursday, where you spoke about anxiety.
Mm.
And um,
All light topics.
I know, right? This is a highlight question for me out of the list. Can anxiety actually be a doorway to deeper self understanding, and how so?
Yeah, absolutely. I know it was for me and continues to be. When I see people who are saying like I have anxiety and I need to do something about it, I'm like, yay. Because anxiety is just a message. It's really just saying you've topped out in terms of how many worries you've got going that are unresolved in your system. You're worrying about a lot of things and you've gone beyond your ability to cope,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's now spilling over. And this is good news because we can actually cope with a lot.
Mhm.
of worries, a lot of anxiety, a lot of absence of peace. But when that anxiety starts spilling over, now we got to deal with it. And we have to ask ourselves, what am I so afraid of? And what am I going to do about that? Do I want to live in a state of fear all the time? Or do I want to put the effort into learning how to create a sense of peace in my body, right? And in my mind. I mean, they're all connected. So we have to get back to a state of peace in our own experience. You go along, you've lived long enough, right? You just keep accumulating additional, oh my God, I gotta worry about that now. Oh my God, I didn't even know that was a thing. Now it is. I gotta worry about that. We keep heaping them into the basket. It's like, well, I'll avoid this, I'll stay away from that, I won't do this. I'll never talk to someone like that. And you keep adding it up, and pretty soon, you're going like this, and you're like, wow, I wonder what's happening with me. Your body is telling you, you got to resolve some of this. We
Mhm.
can't just keep trying to avoid and escape and manage and control all of the things in the world that we could potentially ever be afraid of, right? We really need to be like, okay, what are those things that meet my qualifications in terms of this is a priority big enough for me to address? And what are the things that I'm just going to let go?
That list of what
I'm,
you can control and what you can't.
yes. Yes, exactly. And
Mhm.
those things that I have no control over that are not meeting my top 5 or 10 or whatever it is list of things that I want to focus on,
Mhm.
why would I drag those around with me? Why wouldn't I just say, I'm going to let somebody else deal with that?
Yep.
Someone else who's better qualified, who's more interested, who whatever the things are,
Mhm.
right? We do not have to walk around as little hyper vigilant, I don't know, dragon. I'm getting this like dragon thing of like, just like I was hyper vigilant. I mean, and I'm not picking on anybody. There's no judgment in this. Like I didn't realize that I was hyper vigilant, but I was for more than 50 years of my life, walking around looking for the bad thing that was about to happen. It's a terrible way to live.
Mhm. So you said you experienced anxiety as well. You literally wrote a book about it.
Two
What
now. Yeah.
2 books? What did your anxiety teach you?
What did my anxiety teach me? First of all, it taught me that I needed to know, I didn't know anything about how my mind and body and soul work together. Zero. I
Mhm.
didn't know anything about the inside experience. Um, and I didn't know how to like actually be in my skin and change my experience, which means that I was always reacting to whatever was happening around me.
Mhm.
I couldn't be here and have things happening and just be like watching it. Everything that happened felt personal. And I had to, respond to it. I mean, there had to be this equal and opposite reaction kind of thing. Um, and so I was just going around like in this hypervigilance, watching the environment and then like having an opinion about everything and feeling something about everything and having to, my God, the outrage of it all. It was just very active and very unconscious, very dramatic, right? And
Mhm.
what my anxiety really taught me was there was this other place where I could be sitting inside here and this like calm and peaceful experience where I was just going like, huh, oh, they think that. Interesting.
The observer.
The observer.
Mhm.
Yeah. Have I ever thought about it that way before? Do I
Mhm.
understand why they're thinking that way? Is it even a topic that I'm interested in?
Do I care enough? No.
Do
Okay.
I care enough? Yeah, a lot of times, no. Right? It's not about being rude. If somebody's telling me about something that they're really interested in, I'm interested in the fact that they're interested.
Mhm.
Right? But I don't have to have an opinion about the topic.
Mhm.
I can just support the fact that they're interested in it. I don't have to agree or disagree.
Right.
I can actually say, interesting, and really listen to somebody, like really listen to them share what it is that they're sharing, and then not have an opinion by saying, interesting. Yeah, because people want validation. so much of the anxiety is about, please validate me, right?
Hmm.
I need somebody in the world to validate me. And when we get inside our own skin and inside our own experience, and we start to be able to cultivate, like, ooh, this feels better. Oh, when I think about things this way, that's more lovely. And we really start to get that peace thing going inside. We can't help but become really interested in ourselves. We are anyway. Can I just say, we are the most interesting people we know to ourselves. How could it be otherwise?
Hmm.
And we've been taught that to say that is somehow selfish, you know, or arrogant or whatever. It's like,
Hmm.
right? I mean, it doesn't make any sense at all. So really getting into yourself and finding out like what is it that makes me hum? Like what is it that I want to do with this life that I have?
Hmm.
Really paying attention to that. If you create a lot of focus on you, you will fall in love with yourself because you will find out that the essence of you is perfect for exactly who you are.
Yeah.
I mean, just absolutely perfect. And then you'll realize, oh, that's true of everybody else too. So this whole competition, this whole idea that some people are better and some people are worse, that was all nonsense from the start,
Hmm.
but also part of our evolution. It's like when the intellect didn't know that the instincts were driving the bus,
Hmm.
and it wanted to say, oh, no, no, I'm doing all of this very intentionally. You know, we now know that's not true. We are emotional creatures who do a lot of irrational things because of our instincts. And as long as we know that, there's no problem with it because we can actually take a pause and be like, I mean, does what I'm doing here make sense at this time? And if it doesn't, it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just part of the human experience.
Yes, when we give ourselves permission to explore and experiment, and there is no failure, only lessons to be learned, it really does shift your whole mindset.
Yeah, it really does.
I was able to get rid of so many whips that I used to beat myself up with when I shifted to that line of belief.
Yes,
Because, we get this impression that we're supposed to know everything already.
right.
When I could admit that I don't know shit, it set me free.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I've noticed people pretending. It always bothered me my whole life, even in childhood. I'd be like, well, what you said just conflicted with what you said an hour ago, right? Like, never tell a lie. Don't tell your grandfather what I said. Tell him this instead. It's like,
Wait a
how is
minute.
that not, and then getting in trouble for pointing out the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I figure, wow, everybody else has this whole world figured out already, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm the only one who doesn't get it. And that's really dangerous because I've found out since most of us are thinking that.
Yep.
We're actually thinking, oh, everybody else has it all figured out, and I'm the only one who doesn't.
And
No,
then wonder
newsflash.
why I have anxiety.
Exactly. We're all insecure. We're all looking for validation. All of these things are happening because we did not get unconditional love from people in childhood who had unconditional love for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
We've just been passing along a lot of self-image, self-concept, you know, garbage.
Yeah. Garbage.
Garbage. Oh, that's much better. Yeah.
Garbage. Would you like to mention the name of your two books and let people know where they can get them should they want to purchase them?
Yeah, you can go to masterfulu.com. For those of you who have not figured it out, it is Masterful U. Yes. And it's, it's about your journey to becoming masterful and really understanding who you are, knowing, discovering, developing, and sharing the truth of you, the beauty of you. And there are two books. One of them is Loving Your Anxiety, Attacks, and Other Worries Away.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a first person, like me talking about my journey of like, whoa, the world is nothing like I thought it was, discovery. And then the second book is How to Master Anxiety in 12 Seconds. And it's the same book written. The second book is in second person. So it's just instead I took my journey and I said, here's how you can use this to walk yourself from suffering. I was suffering with anxiety attacks. I mean, going to the hospital thinking I was dying repeatedly. And this was like not long after 9/11 when all of this started. And I knew so little about what we experience and trauma and um, what's the word I'm trying, instincts. I knew so little about all of that back at that time that I made no connection between all of the traumatic experiences that had happened and my sudden um, prominence of panic attacks.
Right. Hmm. All right. Is there anything you feel after your week of videos that you would like to share with our people out there? I'm hearing any loose ends you'd like to tie up before we wrap it up.
Um, no, I don't think so. I mean, I would just say, like, I'm going to say over and over and over and over and over again, you are not broken. You may have worries in your system you don't that are affecting you that you don't know about. You may have old traumas. We all do. There may be things that are affecting you that need healing.
Mhm.
But healing is not a force of willpower. It's not, I gotta be better. It's not any of that stuff. It's actually, let's love on ourselves,
Yeah.
right? So that is my message. Like with love and patience for yourself, you can have a life that will just knock your socks off. And miracles will appear to happen. And it's just incredible. But the first step is to decide that, going through the motions and telling yourself it's going to automatically get better on its own if it hasn't worked this far, probably isn't going to.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a choice. We encourage you to choose you.
Yes. Please fall in love with yourself.
Yes.
Enjoy this journey.
Yeah. Amen. Would you like to give a little glimpse into next week or leave them in?
Going into, yeah, well, we're going into the bees. And I think we might do a business one as well, like business struggles. So to mix it up a little bit. Yeah, and we're doing some back pain, some binge eating, and I don't remember what the other one is, but BS.
Our favorite
Yeah.
topic.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite topics. Yeah, absolutely. Like how to deal with BS. Like when people are just, you know,
Mm-hmm.
BSing you.
Yeah.
How do you stay okay in your experience?
Mm-hmm.
And it's important because we get a lot of it.
Yeah. You and I used to talk a lot about bumper stickers and bullshit.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And when we're experiencing outrage, we're normally in our instincts. I mean, just, to be clear, we're feeling vulnerable and we're in our instincts. There's nothing wrong with that. It has a time and place. But when we get into a place where we're really at peace in our own skin, we can see the dynamics that are happening in the world for what they are, and we don't have to get sucked into the whole chaos thing.
Mm-mm.
And it's better not to be sucked into the whole chaos thing.
Way better.
Yeah.
Way better. Okay. Well, I believe we are finished for today. This was a wonderful experience with you, Miss Chris. I always love chatting with you. That's where we run into trouble because Chris and I will talk for hours.
We will. I mean, we could go for days. Yeah. Thank you so much, Judy. This was great.
And
Yeah.
I look forward to your videos next week and meet
Awesome.
again with you on Friday. So thank everybody for watching. Remember, the website is masterfulu.com,
Hmm.
and you can go there and check out the books. And can they give us their email so they can get newsletters and updates yet, or no?
Yeah. Well, sure. I mean, because this is an evergreen thing. So yeah. After July 10th, all of that functionality will be there. But one of the things that we did is we're making the original anxiety book free.
Awesome.
So we took things down and moved them around so that we can say if there's anybody out there who's suffering from anxiety or any of these other things, and you're willing to put the energy into healing yourself, we will support you and we will not ask you for a dime
Absolutely.
because that's the world we want to live in.
Mhm.
Right. So, so be patient because it's a few more days of doing this total rework, but we're doing it. It's coming right from the heart. So it's for you.
Growing and evolving.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all for joining the weekly wrap-up Q&A, Healing from A to Z, with Masterful U, me, and KB. We
Yes.
will see you next week. Have a great
Thanks,
week.
everybody. Thanks, Judy.
Thank you, Chris.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.